No problem at
It's all
all.
good.
Dino used to be late all the time.
Yeah, he sauntering in. Hey, folks, there's that word saunter again. We are live. It's SVT time. It is Tuesday. It is 2:30 here. Sorry, we're coming into this about a half hour late. We had some scheduling things, but we're here. Man, as always, it's always a pleasure to have guests on here, and we've got a very special guest today coming in, joining us from Toronto, Canada. Andy Curran. First of all, Andy, I always say this. Am I saying your last name Curran or Curran?
The latter, Curran. It is
Curran.
it is up for debate, but it's the name is of Irish origin, and
Okay.
if you were to go to Ireland, you'd probably see as many Currans in the phone book as you would Smiths or something like that. But yeah, and my dearly departed dad would say Curran. And
Curran?
people are
Okay.
Curran. So Curran will work today, boys.
with a last name like Monoxylus that has a million different pronunciations too. So
right.
And there's no proper way to say it. It's just the way. Yeah.
Sounds like a medication, by the way, Dino. Anyway,
it used to be a hair treatment. It used to be a hair treatment for men. Minoxidil. Andy, how are you doing, man? How's everything going?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for asking, Dino, and hello, Dom. I have to admit, moving a little slow today. I'm guilty for being late here, but I stayed up as late as I could watching the Blue Jays game last night, and it went into, I bailed in the 14th inning, and I guess it ended in the 18th inning, but that was the, I guess they set a record for the longest game in World Series history. So the whole city is just Blue Jays fever. And a lot of my friends and I were up very late last night cheering our Blue Jays on. Unfortunately, they lost.
I will say this, Andy, and there, I am, so where I live in New Hampshire, Manchester, we host the AA affiliate for the Blue Jays called the New Hampshire Fisher Cats.
Okay.
So I am by default cheering for the Toronto Blue Jays. As much as Dom is in LA and Ampeg's offices are in LA, I have to cheer for the Toronto Blue Jays. I hope you guys pull it off. I really do.
Well, you know, before we get into talking SVTs, which is one of my favorite all-time topics of the world, you know, I don't think anybody thought the Blue Jays were even going to make the playoffs, let alone go head-to-head with the mighty Dodgers. So the fact that they were locked in that entire game, it was quite a battle to see. And, you know, that we're quite proud of the Jays, but they're one of these teams like the Dodgers that one swing of the bat can just change everything. You know?
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's a great series, and game one was a little scary. So
it is a great series so far. I mean, it could go either way right now, and you know, it's I made it, I think, to the 12th inning last night. I faded out. I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore, and that was it. You know,
you and me both. And I wanted to be fresh-eyed and bushy-tailed for the Ampeg talk. So here I am, moving kind of slow, boys.
No, that's all right. That's quite all right. That's all right. So, Andy, I gotta say, you know, I met you years ago when and we'll talk about this a little bit down the road, but when Rush was doing their R40 tour. I remember that's how you and I first became acquainted. And but you've had an amazing career as a bassist, as a solo artist. And I want to talk about your beginnings too, like how you got started in the industry, you know, your musical background and whatnot. But would you say Coney Hatch was kind of like that was your first exposure into like really coming into your own as far as a rock band and a solo artist?
Yeah, for sure it was, Dino. I mean, I founded that band back. I'm obviously aging myself here, but I founded the band back in 81 in Toronto, and fresh out of high school. My parents were extremely supportive, but not very happy that I was not going to university or college or anything like that. I was like, no. I'm gonna start a band. And my grandfather was a professional musician in London, England. He was a trumpet player. And he was on some of the very first BBC recordings where they would have these live radio shows at a place called Alexander Palace. And when they had the radio shows, they would actually have the band in a pit in the orchestra. And my grandpa played trumpet in that. So the family did have a musical background. And I think because of my grandpa, my parents knew that it wasn't going to be an easy ride. He was a professional musician. So they were like, you got to go to school. You got to, have a plan B. So I appeased them by getting part-time jobs, but the minute I could do it full-time, I was there.
Yeah.
And so the start of the rocket ride really, guys, was when we were playing a club on the Yonge Street Strip, which many years later Mike Myers would make famous in his movie Wayne's World. In the infamous Gasworks was the name of the club, right?
Okay.
And this was a Toronto institution. And when you were coming up through the ranks of playing clubs and stuff like that, if you hit the Gasworks, you had somewhat arrived as a bar band. And one of the times that we played there, a gentleman by the name of Kim Mitchell from a band called Max Webster, he came to see us, and he had just disbanded Max Webster. They had been the opening act for Rush on many, many tours. They were signed to Mercury Polygram. And for those of you that don't know Max Webster, they were very eclectic and almost kind of Frank Zappa-ish sounding, very sort of left of center. But Kim's an extremely accomplished, talented vocalist, guitarist. And he took us underneath his wings and he said, I want to bring you in the studio. I think you guys got something going on. And we were playing half covers and half original stuff. So my dad, that I've mentioned to you on several occasions, God rest his soul, he loaned us $2,500 to go into the studio to pay for the recording time. But we had to sign a promissory note that we were going to pay him back, which eventually we did when we got a record deal. So that was the beginning of the rocket ride, guys. Kim brought us into the studio. We did a 4 or 5 song demo, and we shopped it around. We had 2 offers, one from Capitol EMI Records in Canada, and the other one was Anthem Records, home of Rush. And we ended up signing with Anthem Records, and our manager was Ray Daniels. And that was the beginning of it all back in sort of 82, Dino.
Okay. Man, and unfortunately, the record industry doesn't seem like it works that way anymore, where you go in, you record a demo, you shop it around, and it's just, it's a totally different environment these days.
Yeah.
And, I hate to date myself as well, but for the younger kids or the younger people that are breaking into the industry, that's how it was. That's how it was done. You'd record a demo and you would shop it to record industry, and eventually either you got picked up or you didn't get picked up, or you got signed on to a development deal where they would develop you as an artist, sort of thing.
Absolutely, you're right, Dino. It's really changed these days, and unfortunately, with the state of the music industry and a lot of staff cutoffs and everything, cutting, they don't really have the resources to what I'd call develop a band.
Right.
There's no sort of A&R incubator. Let's take these guys fresh out of the bars. Let's get them into the studio, do some demos. Let's take it from A to B and start developing them. There is no more development that I could see. It's all done by the bands or investors, and the labels are waiting for it to be gift wrapped and ready to go.
Yeah.
Dino, tell me, Dom, tell me what you've done with your band and how many followers do you have, right?
What are your socials?
Yeah. Yeah. They're waiting for it to be gift wrapped. So it's very much DIY now. And I think we were quite lucky to come up in that era where there were so many venues to play. By the time we got signed, guys, we had played so many shows from Monday to Saturday. Wayne Gretzky, the hockey player, talks about honing your skills and needing 10,000 hours before you're even ready. Yep. So by the time Kim Mitchell from Max Webster saw us, we had played so many shows that we were kind of like a well-oiled machine. We were still a baby band, but we paid our dues. And that, unfortunately, that circuit of clubs and opportunities, it doesn't exist in this day and age. You kind of have to get noticed on social media or TikTok or something before somebody takes notice, right?
Yeah.
You bring up an interesting point, because because of that, I feel like a lot of young artists that, I mean, there are some artists that have a massive hit on TikTok and then they're on an arena tour like months later and they've never played a show before and they're just like in-ears are in and they're out doing the thing, and like I feel so bad for them because it's like how do you step into that role and have confidence about know who you are as an artist and know how to perform and everything, and then you have these legacy acts that I feel like are doing really well touring because they have been doing it for so long that they know who they are, they know their fan base, they know what their fans want. It's just a very interesting climate right now where you can have brand new artists and they're on an arena tour for their first show ever. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, Dom, you're absolutely right, and I think it would be quite intimidating and daunting to, as you said, do a YouTube video or something on TikTok, get signed, and all of a sudden you're playing in an arena. And
Yeah.
I can only tell you from our experience on that ride from, let's call it, being plucked out of the bars in Toronto, and then a year later we're opening up for Judas Priest on the Screaming for Vengeance tour in front of 18,000 people. And you're like, oh my God, this is completely overwhelming. And the adrenaline is just like flowing. And you're like, how did we get here? And in playing to that amount of people. And we had the luxury of trying to hone our craft and work on being performers. And we had that training ground. But today, I couldn't imagine somebody saying to us, oh, you're going to skip everything in between. Then you're going to go from playing in your house on your camera to opening up for Taylor Swift in an arena. That's going to be really tough, man.
Yeah.
That 2-second delay that you keep hearing all the way back there, you'll figure it out. It's fine.
You'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Andy, were you touring all over Canada, or were you primarily just prior to you getting signed and everything? Were you bouncing around Canada? Or was it primarily around the Toronto area?
No, it was across Canada from east to west.
Okay.
We went, as from Vancouver all the way to Halifax, and everything in between. Played a lot in Quebec, and the club circuit was alive and well. And
sure,
prior to getting signed, Dino, it was kind of like word of mouth. I guess it was followers in a different way. We were getting followers by playing live, and we were playing a lot of covers, half the night covers like AC/DC, UFO, Cheap Trick, Ted Nugent, a lot of those bands, and then we would mix in our own original material, and club owners didn't want you to. They were like, no, you got to play covers all night. So we wouldn't even announce our stuff. We just slide it in and go, there's another song there, right?
Yeah.
But our country, like your country, is vast, and so we were touring relentlessly. Like I was never ever home, and then it just got even busier. When we got our records out, it just we stayed on that pace of playing all the time, but we were at a different level at that point. We had a lot of opening slots, and not to name drop, I can tell you that guys, that development stage when our managers said, we got to get you ready for that Judas Priest tour. There's a very popular band in Canada called Trooper, and they've got so many. They like, I lost count of how many gold records and hits they had. So they were doing a small arena tour of what I'd call local arenas, about 1,500 seats, just where kids would play organized hockey or something, or lacrosse. And so we were playing these little 1,500 seat arenas to prep us, to get us ready for Judas Priest tour, right? To come up through the ranks. But in between then, we got to open up for Ted Nugent and Cheap Trick in Toronto at the CNE Grandstand. That was probably about 20,000 people, outdoor venue where the Blue Jays actually used to play before the stadium. But peppered in there were gigs opening up for Peter Frampton and Edgar Winter and Eddie Money, Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, Joe Perry.
Sure.
But primarily the lion's share of the shows were in Canada pre-record deal days. But then when we got the record deal, it was Canada and the US and a little bit in Europe. Yeah.
Okay. So you were almost like, you were the welcoming band for a lot of US tours that were coming up to Canada.
Absolutely.
In a lot of ways, you were kind of that's because, I mean, how much, obviously compared to Canada, what would you say, like, your ratio of success was down in the States versus Canada, because
Yeah.
obviously you had success down here in the States as well, but
Mm.
I would imagine not as much as you were up in Canada. Am I correct in saying that?
You are, yeah. Like I would definitely say that our presence in Canada was much stronger because of the radio play, and but where we started to make a dent into the U.S. was, and again, guys, dating ourselves, like MTV was brand new, and I remember them calling our record company, going, "Do you have any videos that we could play? Because we're a brand new station, and we need some videos." And Coney Hatch had a brand new video for Devil's Deck off the debut record, so we immediately got added to MTV because they didn't have any videos to play.
Yeah.
They were
Exactly.
like, please send us some stuff. And that obviously rapidly changed, right? Where
Yeah.
you beg, borrow, and steal to get onto MTV. But what that did, guys, was open up a couple pockets for us. So we started to get strong airplay, right out of the gate in Pittsburgh, in Pennsylvania. Then the border towns of Buffalo and Detroit started spilling out of the States, out of Canada into the States. Then getting into the Midwest, and the West Coast got picked up by KLOS in LA. So it was the MTV video stuff that kind of started to get our name out there in the US, where it really helped us to not get booed off the stage when we were opening up for Judas Priest. They did not like any opening acts. And funny story for you boys, Rob Halford, the very first Coney Hatch gig, stadium gig, we get this knock on the door and we open it up and it's Rob Halford. He goes, "Where are those Coney Hatches? I want to say hi to those Coney Hatches." And he comes around and he's introducing himself, shaking our hands and everything. And he proceeds to tell us that their fans are going to hate us from the minute we get on stage. He goes, "They're going to hate you. They don't like any opening acts. They're going to throw stuff at you. They'll be yelling obscenities at you. But my advice is just put your head down and persevere and, try to just stick in there for 3 songs." And he leaves. And we're like, "Oh my God, what did we get ourselves into?" Like, the Romans throwing the peasants to the lions.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, he was absolutely right, guys. We hit the stage on pretty much every single show with Judas Priest. House lights go down, people freaking out, the adrenaline's running, house lights go up, we start playing, guys are flipping us the bird, they're throwing firecrackers at us, they're throwing tennis balls, signs saying, "We love Saxon, F you, go home." And so we just put our heads down and just went, we got to get through this, right? And we strategically put Devil's Deck, the one that was on MTV, about 3rd song in, so people kind of went, okay, that's who those guys are, right? And at that point we were kind of accepted, but just having to play to that type of an audience and go, "Oh my God, we are in for a ride here. We got to bring our A game." We learned so much on that tour, but we immediately changed our wardrobe. We dressed in black every single night, like when in Rome, like what can we do to buffer the fact that these fans are, that they do not want an opening act. They want to go straight to Judas Priest. And if anything, I think, guys, that prepared us for the subsequent tours after that. Like we did the Iron Maiden tour with a Peace of Mind record in 1983, probably for about 30 shows. So having all of those experiences in our back pocket, opening up for Judas Priest and playing with Cheap Trick at the Grandstand in Canada, doing all of those shows with Edgar Winter and Peter Frampton and Ted Nugent, and they just help us get our confidence and our sea legs to play on a bigger stage, right? And it's all that part you spoke about, Dom, where it would be very daunting as an artist to play in that type of a situation with little or no experience playing on stage, right?
I also can't imagine once you got on those other tours and you're getting applause, like the rush and adrenaline, you guys must have felt like on cloud 9 after going through, like, running the gamut of the other shows for Judas Priest.
Absolutely. Not to mention, like, at the heart of all of this, you guys, is I'm a music fan, but that's the seed starting from day one. So 90% of those bands that I just mentioned to you that we got to share the stage with, I had posters of them up on my wall in my bedroom. I was like, how I played the crap out of Frampton Comes Alive, and I'm actually backstage shaking the guy's hand and meeting him. This is surreal. You know? It just blew my little 19-year-old mind. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. When you got started, was it kind of like your focus was like, that's the level we want to be at immediately? Was there ever like oh, I'm just playing music, this is fun, love being in a band? Or was it like from day one, you're like disciplined, like I want to be full on rock star?
Great question. It started off as I love playing bass. I'm getting together with some buddies. We're jamming in basements and warehouses. And it wasn't until, guys, that I saw, I was a really, really big Edgar Winter Group fan. I loved Edgar Winter. I loved Frankenstein. And I went to see him on the Shock Treatment tour in Toronto. And that was the come to Jesus moment with me, Dom, where I saw that show at Maple Leaf Gardens. They're playing Frankenstein. Rick Derringer was in the band. They're playing Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo and a bunch of stuff from his record. And I was like, I'm going to be on that stage one day. I like, come hell or high water, this is what I want to do. And that was the defining moment for me. And I have to tell you that, many years later, like about 6 or 7 years later, I was on that stage opening up for Judas Priest. And then a couple months later playing New Year's Eve on a gig with Saga and Kim Mitchell. So I got to play that venue twice in 1 year.
Wow.
And my parents had always said to me, Andy, you envision where you want to be, picture yourself there and go for it. Don't let anybody stop you. So that became the deer in the headlight, Dom, where I was like, that's what I want to do for a living.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. So your parents obviously saw you saw the success that came, and although they wanted you to go to university, I'm sure they kind of had a little bit of not a change of heart, but probably a change of heart, that like our kid, didn't listen to us and had his vision, and he succeeded.
Well, Dino, I was coming back in those days. I'm proud to tell you that if I made $50 a week back in what I call the peanut butter days, pre-record deal days, I'd come home bragging to my parents, oh yeah, $50. And they'd be like, are you crazy, son? Like, what are you doing? Just a notch above poverty. But as you said, when the record came out and when we were playing these shows at these arenas and everything, there was like, okay, the kid's actually doing something here. He's followed his heart. He followed his dream. And I do have a funny story to tell you about when we played in Toronto at Maple Leaf Gardens, opening up for Judas Priest. I got my parents, obviously, primo tickets. And so they're going down to their tickets, which are like third or fourth row on the floor. And some guy says to him, are you here to see the priest? Says that to my dad. And my dad's this pretty assuming 6'4" British, well-spoken gentleman. He said, and he's smoking a cigar in the venue. And he goes, no, I'm here to see the hatch, he says.
Good for him.
Priest, right? Then we had an after show party backstage, and my dad just waltzes in with no pass, like he's going to go backstage. And the guy goes, sir, I need to see your pass. You're going to have to wait here. And he says, try and stop me. And he just pushes the guy aside, says, my son's in Coney Hatch, and pushes him aside, right?
Yes. I love it.
But there was a change of heart there. And then I think when they saw some results happen, they were always supportive, but then they were fully in, and they stopped saying to me, when are you going to get a proper job?
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
Also, sorry, go ahead, Dino.
No, go ahead, Don. Go ahead.
I was just saying, you mentioned, the $50 a week thing. And I remember the first, feeling like $1 million just for getting any type of money for music back. You're just like, wait a second, I'm a professional now. Like, there's just something that sparks you.
Oh yeah.
Similar story. I had a whole summer of shows playing, and I'm like, I'm gonna be rich. I got these paid gigs. I got whatever. And my dad comes home. He's like, you're showing up at the garage tomorrow. I got you a job, like a real job, 9 to 5.
a real job. Yeah. I remember having, I'm the youngest of 8 kids, and 4 of my brothers are golfers, avid golfers. They'd golf. Anyway, the conversation when I was first starting out too, I remember having this conversation with my older brother, similar thing, because we all work for the family business. And I remember telling my brother, I says, if there was ever a chance that you could play golf every day of the week and make a living doing it, albeit not, you're not going to get rich, but you could make a living playing golf and put money in your pocket by swinging a golf club every single day, would you do it? He was like, oh, yeah, absolutely. I says, that's what I do.
Yeah.
That's why I do what I do, because there's ever so small of a chance that I could actually make a living doing this, you know, and be happy doing it. And yeah, so that's how I put it in perspective.
That's a great analogy. And athletes are very similar, you know, their struggle playing AAA ball or AHL hockey, trying to get to the show, you know, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah. Yep. But if there's that small chance that you can make a living at it, you know, you might not get rich, but you can make a living at it and support yourself. And, you know, albeit, I have to ask you, where does the name Coney Hatch come from?
Okay, so this again plays back to my parents, born and raised in London, England. Their parents from Ireland, County Cork. But it was around 79 or 80 that my parents wanted to bring the entire family back to England to show us where they grew up. I was from a big family as well, Dino, 6 kids.
Okay.
So they brought us back to a small suburb of London called Muswell Hill. And they were traipsing us around to the tennis club and the pub where they used to hang out, and the church where they got married. And we're just walking around Muswell Hill, which is just a suburb of London. And we're walking down the street, and there's these big stone walls and everything. And I said to my mom, what's behind the walls? And she said, okay, that's Coney Hatch, the lunatic asylum. And I was like, what did you say? She goes, yeah, it's a psychiatric mental hospital. And when I was a little girl, I would walk to school, and I'd be deathly afraid that these loonies were going to jump over the fence and chase us around. So I was like, okay, this is cool. I wrote it down. I was already starting to dabble in a little bit of songwriting and song titles. So I had a little journal, and I wrote Coney Hatch in there. It's actually spelled Colney. And we took the L out to Americanize it and make it easier, so people weren't calling us Colney Hatch or something, right?
Yeah.
So I came home, told it to the boys in the band at that time, and said, I got a name for us. It's, you know, we're going to name our band after a lunatic asylum. And everybody was like, yeah, let's go, right? So fast forward, I did a little bit of research recently and found out, like every other budding city in the world, that psychiatric facility, they changed it into condos. They're high-end condominiums now that you can live in. So Coney Hatch is still there on Coney Hatch Lane. One of these days we want to get back there and have a photo op right, you know, by the wall that says Coney Hatch. But that's where the name came from.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Great story. That's awesome. That is so awesome.
The loonies.
The loonies. Now, I have a picture here that you sent me. Let me see if I can share this. And share screen. Let's see here if I can do this without
technology.
Gosh, right?
I got faith in you. Think you can do
it? Yeah, you have too much faith in me, Dom, because it's entire. Oh, here we go. Okay, so let me see if I can share this. So, tell us a little something.
Nice.
About this photo. So I see SVTs on either side of the drum riser, and of course Marshall stacks.
Yeah.
When was this from, Andy?
This is from 1982, the infamous Coney Hatch opening up for Judas Priest at Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto. This, as you can see, there's 2 risers there. Those we had to set up on top of their risers because the only real estate that we had was in front where we were standing. So we were like, hey, do you mind if we borrow one of your risers and we'll put our backline on top of that? And then if you look above the drum kit, that was the top riser where Rob Halford would walk around, and all of their stuff would be behind it, right?
Okay.
But I mentioned to you, Dino, that in my quest for the ultimate bass tone, by the time this photo was taken in 82, I was full on SVT or nothing. And to my right of me, I'm singing lead vocals in the front there with spandex and leg warmers on, by the way. I'm going to apologize for the
don't ever apologize for that.
But
you guys get to wear that. You guys get to have amps on stage. I'm so jealous. I was bored of it.
Yeah, with my BC Rich Mockingbird, which I still have. But
we're going to talk about that here in a second too. But
yeah, so that's a silver face SVT 300 watt head, 810 on that side. and the guitarists had their stacks, and I was like, well, I want another stack. I want to be both left and right, because the one thing I will say about the SVT, it's very directional, right? So if I went over to side, the other side, I couldn't hear it. So I was like, well, screw it. I'm just going to get two. And so I bought the Blackface the year it came out, maybe 80, 81. You guys would probably know better. And to this day, I still own the black one in the cabinet that sits underneath it. But that was the back line that we brought out on the Screaming for Vengeance tour. I would have used the exact same one when we played with Maiden as well.
Okay. Man. Yeah, because that looks like mid-70s, just looking at it, from afar. And then I remember we had talked about this. I think that's an MTI era SVT, like early 80s to about 85. I think is when St. Louis Music bought Ampeg from MTI. But
and Dino, you would be able to maybe speak about this, or Dom too. When we were told that we were going to go out, I was basically advised by our management, like, you need a backup rig. You can't just have one. If it goes down, you need to have another one. So I went to Long and McQuaid here in Canada, which is pretty much our version of Guitar Center, right? And I wanted to buy a Silverface, and they said, well, we don't have any Silverface. The new model is the Blackface one, identical amp, just Blackface. And I said, sold. Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah,
nice.
That's awesome.
And you still, so let me see if I can take this picture down now without
without cutting our call off.
Yeah, right, exactly. Let me see. Oh, here we go. Remove. There we go. So you being a BC Rich fan back then, you still have your Mockingbird.
I do.
Okay.
Look, you've got the Eagle. Oh, nice.
So I've had this Eagle since I was in high school, and it's been, Dom knows the story, so he's heard this before, but this bass has been torn apart, beaten, refinished a number of times, had MIDI pickups screwed into it, it was my experimental bass for years.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
a beauty.
I owned, at the time, I had like 3 or 4 Eagles and a couple of Mockingbirds.
Yeah.
Through my time in LA, I sold them all, and but I kept this bass because this was my original high school bass. I just recently had it refinished by a guy here in New Hampshire. DiMarzio sent me their equivalent of what the PAF, the original patent DiMarzio's were. And of course, I didn't have all the electronics, so I just have it wired, simple, volume, tone. But man, I gotta say, like, when I took this out of the case, I took it on a gig. Probably within the last few months, and I'm primarily a 5-string player now. But when I pulled this, I felt like I was a high school kid again, playing my high school bass. So when I saw your Mockingbird, it's like you don't see many players these days, or even back then. I mean, that was an expensive axe back then too. BC Rich, anything BC Rich was pretty pricey back then.
It was, and I ended up, as I mentioned to you, being advised that I had to have backups of everything. I had a long scale and a short scale BC Rich Mockingbird, same kind of era that you have yours in, never modified any of them whatsoever. I subsequently, I wish I didn't do this, Dino, but as you know, guys, you collect gear and you go, I don't need that anymore. Don't want that Rickenbacker Ruby Burst. It doesn't sound that great anymore, and sold it for $400 like an idiot. And the Burgundy Burst, right? But
I saw it the other day. I just saved it. It's probably yours.
Yeah. I actually sold it to one of the guys on our road crew, and the next day it got stolen from his room. And I felt very bad. But so I sold the long scale, but I actually, on the new Envy of None record, my side project that I have with some guy in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame named Alex Lifeson, I used the BC Rich Mockingbird short scale on a bunch of tracks with that lovely Ampeg SD pedal that you sent me, and brought that into the studio. And there's a track called Not Dead Yet, which is the lead off track of the new record, and that's that's like that Ampeg pedal with the blend and some nice growl at it with the
Yeah.
BC Rich Mockingbird. So everything old is new again. You know, I got the Mockingbird back out and dusted it off for that.
Nice. Yeah, that's you know, that's just like you said, everything old is new again, and everything new is old again. And you know, now you're combining the best of the new world and best of the old world as well by using the pedal.
Yeah.
I remember you were telling me how your roadies would have paid you to not have to carry your SVTs around back then if you showed them that SGT pedal.
Well, when you guys sent that to me and said, Curran, try this out, and I brought it into the studio and I posted it, true story, a bunch of the guys that were on our crew from that photo that you said, and they were like, oh my God, Curran, I wish you had that back in the day, because they were hauling that, the fridge, they would call it the fridge. They were hauling the fridge around everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And breaking their backs with it. And, you know, I have to tell you guys, I'm going to get a little bit nerdy with you being a Canadian guy, because my quest for the ultimate bass tone, being a Canadian guy, we had trainer amplifiers, and they were made by Yorkville here in Canada, and Yorkville was the parent company to Long and McQuaid. So if you were a bass player, you know, you would probably gravitate towards the trainer bass master, or you know, the bass mate was a small one. So when I was coming up through the ranks, that's what I was playing at home in my bedroom, the trainer bass mate, and then the trainer bass master was a separate head in the cabinet. And then I moved into the monoblock. The monoblock was just a solid state one. And I, at some point, and I wish I could remember this, somebody said to me, Curran, why are you messing around with these trainer amps? Have you ever plugged your bass into an SVT? You need to do that, because I think you'll never go back. And they were true. That story was true. That advice, I went and tried a rig out, and I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And I have never, ever switched or used any other bass amp in the studio or live other than the SVT or the SVT pedals that I got from you guys. And I'm a firm believer that is the definitive. I'm using mostly P basses now. You cannot get that sound with a P bass and an SVT with any other rig. That is the holy grail of bass sounds for me.
Yeah. Yep. True. Very true.
Well, thank you. And you know what? I'm very sleep deprived and over caffeinated, and I hate to interrupt this amazing broadcast, Andy, for, you know, we try to keep all good vibes on this show.
Where's he going?
Come in and just drop some negative comments, Peter. So I just want to address, we haven't made Vietnamese SVT VRs. We actually don't even make SVT VRs anymore. I'm sorry you had a very bad experience. I apologize for that. That was eons ago. The SVT is, as we're saying, obviously I'm very biased. I'm product manager for Ampeg, which is why I need to stick up for this. It is not crap. It is #1 backline amp in all of the world, so it must be doing something correctly. Also, we make American versions of the amp, so please, we try not to pass all the cost on to the customer, which is why we make a version in China as well. So
well, Don, can I interrupt you and tell you that when I can't travel with the rig outside of Canada, on the Coney Hatch rider, it says SVT, a classic SVT head with an 810 cabinet. I would argue that 95% of the festival shows that Coney Hatch plays, including Sweden Rock, we played with Iron Maiden at Sweden Rock a couple of years ago. All of the festivals in Canada across the country, you show up there is an Ampeg SVT rig as part of the backline. It has become the industry standard for bass players. And yes, there are other great companies out there, but don't waste your time. Just go get an SVT and an 810 and full stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So question is, do all roads eventually lead to P bass?
Yeah, I think so.
It's so funny. It's like,
it is, right? And Dino, you've probably got a bunch of them. I think
yes. Well, it's fun. I literally just posted a story on my Instagram thing about a P bass I had bought from Dave Rowe, the Nashville legend, who since passed away a number of years ago. But yeah, I've man, all the like 60s and 70s P basses I've bought and sold cheap over the years. Like back in, in the 80s, I remember in the 80s, you couldn't give away a 78 P bass.
Right.
Like when I was working retail at that time, like literally you could not give away, like, hey, I'll give you a box of strings nobody was buying them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now
you're like humbucker land then, right?
yeah, it was, it was a different time. Bass players were trying out different things. They were going more hi-fi, but nowadays it's like, now I go out on gigs or sessions. I always make sure I've got a P bass in my bag. I bring my MTDs with me because that's my primary go-to. But every time I pull out a P bass, it's just like there's never any question.
For extended range, it leaves me wanting a little bit. But other than that, if we're not doing 5-string, if we're on 4 strings, it's like I just can't do it.
Yeah, I agree with you guys, and I've never been a 5-string player, guys. I got the hip shot, so I'll pop it down. Sometimes I'll even play the low E string down to a C and just not play it as hard. But the interesting thing, which I think both you guys would agree, and in terms of the P bass or different tones, I like the analogy of especially when recording. It's almost like a painter with their easel, and you need different colors. So a Hofner Beetle bass, which I own, sounds completely different from a Rickenbacker, which sounds completely different from the Mockingbird or the P bass or the jazz bass. I've got a clear acrylic Dan Armstrong bass.
Oh, wow.
Dan Armstrong bass that sounds really, really cool. I've got a 12-string Hamer bass that sounds freaking awesome. But it's kind of like, well, which bass suits the song that we're doing? So I love the fact that I've been able to being lucky enough to build up my bass collection and the amount of bass guitars that I have. But it always seems to gravitate back towards the P bass, especially for the live stuff. So I've got maybe a total of 4 or 5 P basses with different configurations and different necks and stuff like that. And they're what I would call my workhorses. But when I get into the studio, Dom, all bets are off. I'm trying any different bass in there just to see what kind of color or tone or texture it might bring that might be slightly different for that song. Geddy Lee was kind enough to gift me one year as a present. He gifted me a Jaco Pastoria's relict fretless jazz bass, and I use that a little bit on the Envy of None records too. But I don't know. There's something about the way a Fender sits on you, and it's so comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. You've had, so I want to talk a little bit about your solo career too, Andy, because you look, again, reading through your bio and everything, nominated for 2 Juno Awards, winner of one of them, I believe, right? As most promising male vocalist of the year. And so this all happened after Coney Hatch.
Correct,
I'm assuming, did the band disband, or did you guys just kind of go your own separate ways? Or
we did disband. Our 3rd record was called Friction. It was aptly titled that, when you have a bad marriage or a girlfriend that you're just not getting along with. We had spent so many hours and weeks and months and years together. We were just like, okay, that's it.
Yeah.
It was done. There was a lot of animosity, and I was like, you talk about that perseverance, Dino, of just like have the blinders on and you're going to play golf every day of your life. And I was like, well, I've come this far. So it was a scary notion not to be in a band anymore. So I put together, a couple of solo records and ended up arguably having more success with the Juno nominations. And one of the funny nominations was, most promising male vocalist. Well, I'd already been around for 6 or 7 years. So why they were calling me most promising was like, hey, I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
But, after the Coney Hatch chapter, I did what I would call the Andy Curran solo band chapter, and then subsequently put a band together called Soho 69. We played a couple shows with King's X. Doug Pinnick is one of my favorite all-time bass players. And Tones Then I had a band called Caramel signed to Geffen. We did a lot of touring in the States with Creed and Brother Kane and Econoline Crush through the 90s and stuff like that. So there was lots of reincarnations of the solo career, Dino, but just with names of bands put on.
Yeah.
They were essentially my project, but I always loved the band part rather than, oh, look at me, it's the Andy Curran show.
I got you.
I wanted to have a band name on it. But, you know, when we first started the interview and you were talking to me about when you and I first met, so there was an interesting sort of crossroads in my career in the early 2000s where I had 4 or 5 different bands and record deals and stuff like that. I had 2 young daughters, and I could either continue and keep going down that road. I had a publishing offer, but then I got a call from Rush's manager, Ray Daniels, who was my manager back in Coney Hatch. And he said, Andy, how would you like to come over and be the A&R guy for the label? Help me out with the management side of things. You know, you've got 2 young kids. Maybe it's time for you to be off the road, spend a little. And so I took that opportunity and just parked performing for about 15 years. I did not do a single show, did a bunch of sort of recording stuff, but I primarily focused on being the A&R guy working at Anthem Records, specifically with Rush. And then they had a management company that had the Tea Party, Big Wreck, Ian Thornley, Stephen Page from Bare Naked Ladies, Molly Johnson, the jazz singer. So we had a small stable of acts that I was responsible for helping out on the management side. But when it came time to that infamous R40 tour, and the boys told me this concept where they wanted to go sort of backwards in time so that when one of their sets, set number 2, got to be in the 70s or the 80s, wouldn't it be amazing to have like a wall of Ampeg amps? And, you know, Curran, can you help us with this? Right. And I was like, oh, geez, I don't know. And my search eventually led to Dino, and I called Dino and I said, this is what the boys want to do. They, you know, can you help us out with some Ampeg backline? Because Getty and Alex, they want to go back in time to when they used to have the full wall of amps, right?
Yeah.
So Dino, you know, you dug in and helped the guys with that, and they were so happy of doing that with us.
So
you've got the nameplate, the Dirk
nameplate. Nice.
But I will correct you, and I'll give credit where credit was due. That was at the time, that was Scott Patterson was handling artist relations for Ampeg, and I was the product specialist. And but I remember Scott talking to me about that, and it's like, you know, who do we do empty cabinets? Because I know it was the concept behind it was like as the boys were playing, the guys would come out and take cabinets away, and eventually, you know, as that era was winding down, you know, it went from the big wall of cabinets down to a couple of cabinets, and then
chairs,
and then the final show was literally, I think it was Getty playing a little trainer amp on top of a chair in a gymnasium.
It was because the boys started in Toronto, like myself. The first amps you were exposed to were the trainer amps through Long McQuaid. But funny story, if you want to put that Dirk thing back up again, I'll tell you a funny story because, you know, I called up Getty and I said, Getty, so good news, Ampeg are going to work with us. And he goes, well, there's one more wrinkle. And I go, oh, what's the wrinkle? He said, I want to take the Ampeg logo and I want to change it to a D, and I want my nickname Dirk to be under there. So the whole backline will be Dirk amps, not Ampeg amps. And I'm thinking to myself, Ampeg's never going to go for this. What do you mean? And then we called you guys and you're like, hell yeah. Let's go.
I mean, you could see that from a mile away and know it's an Ampeg logo.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. But that's Getty's nickname is Dirk, and Alex's is Lurkst, and Alex has started his own line of signature Lurkst amplifiers, and Neil was, of course, Pratt. And anytime I was with those guys, they never called themselves Getty, Alex, Neil. They were like, hey, Dirk, come on over here. Pratt, what are you doing today? It was like the nicknames were there all the time. But that was so much fun working with you guys. And I was at Rush's warehouse, you know, maybe about a month ago, and I saw all of those cabs still there, dude. So
no kidding.
Let's cross our fingers that maybe they might make an appearance on the 50-something tour. Who knows?
I will say this, just, obviously Getty is a legend. He's one of my big influences. Whatever Getty, you know what I mean? Whatever he needs, I'm always happy to help out. So whatever you guys need for it.
Wow. I'll pass that on to him
for
sure.
He might just want a simple little pedal just to plug into the washing machines or the chicken rotisseries.
The chicken rotisseries. Oh my God.
But he's got, I will say this, and actually we had, this was a number of episodes ago on, we had Tim Starachi, who does
from Tech 21.
From Tech 21. And, obviously we know Getty's relationship with Tech 21 and Tim, and it's just, it's always been just a great relationship between all of us. So, again, just getting back to whatever Getty needs or wants or doesn't want, we're always happy to help out. But
the one thing I'll tell you guys about being an Ampeg purist, because that's an unmistakable tone, and you can't get that with any other combination of any other amplifier in my experience of 40 years plus. But sometimes I call it like to the exponent, Ampeg with the asterisks in the corner. And I told you, Dino, that I had a funny story for you that I wanted to share about some cosmetic changes that I did to my black face amplifier. So I was doing a session, and the producer said to me, Andy, why don't you bring the SVT in? And you said you had a Hofner Beetle bass, right? And I said, yeah. And he goes, have you ever just cranked the hell out of that with your Hofner Beetle bass? And I said, well, no, I would be afraid to get too close for the feedback and stuff, because it's almost like a little bit microphonic and with a semi hollow body bass. But I said, I'm happy to do that. So I brought the SVT in. I brought my my Hofner Beetle bass in, and we put it in a hallway. We cranked it up to like 5, which you guys know, even at 5 is like deafening loud, right?
Yeah.
Had the Beetle bass on, and I was doing almost like this Donovan type of a bass line. And the song is called Mr. Sunshine, and it's on the Caramel record. And we tracked it, and and the producer came out, and he goes, oh my God, dude, that sounds like a diesel train coming down the track. The next day, I shit you not, guys, the next day I went to an automotive place, and I found a plaque that said diesel on it. Nice. And I put it right where the Ampeg is on the head.
Yeah.
Right below it, I put diesel on it. I've had so many people come up to me and go, dude, I didn't know Ampeg made a diesel. Like, well, tell me about the diesel amp. And I said, well, you need to get in touch with Ampeg, because it's like this rocket fueled version of the SVT. But really what it was a Tech 21 Sans amp pedal into the SVT. That's the only messing around that I ever do. I've got a Doug Pinnick DP pedal that I put in front of that, and I drive the SVT with that. And sometimes I'll just take it off to have the true tone on it. But that is the only modification I've ever done with an SVT, was putting a Tech 21 Doug Pinnick pedal in front of it. Yeah. And it sounds like a freaking diesel train, boys.
That's funny.
So my rig to this day has the diesel on it. So
it still does.
Yeah. So maybe, we need to get in and have a sidebar with your technicians and talk about the diesel amp and see if we could do a diesel version.
Do a diesel version. You never know.
Hybrids. We need a diesel.
That is awesome. What a great story.
Yeah.
Man, I'm also reading through some of these comments here, and everybody's just chiming in and sharing their Livewire is asking any Ampeg history on the Altec Lansing 12. I can't. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah, I'm not. I really don't have any history other than I know Altec was a option that you could order with like a B15 or the SB12. You could always order Altec Lansings, but I'm sorry, Livewire, I really don't have a lot of history on that, unfortunately. But
my only history is blowing up my SVT cabinet and getting replacement speakers. So that's
exactly.
Caveman.
So Andy,
I was curious, do you tour with Is your rig like square back A10s, or do you have the more modern curved back?
Well,
You mean as far as the cabinet goes?
Yeah.
Yeah, those were all the curved back with the big handle.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah,
In fact,
I stayed with those, Dom. I never went with just the straight up and down ones. I always had the curved back. Never understood. Was that for porting reasons? Was that for
Some people,
the
because go ahead, Dino. Yeah,
no, the original A10s were what they called square backs. So if you cut an A10 cab in half, you'll see that it's 4 separate 210 compartments.
Yeah.
With the square back, each compartment is equal in size. Whereas with the newer ones where they have the slanted backs with the towel, the top compartment and the bottom compartment are a little bit smaller than the 2 middle compartments because they're actually cut off. Yeah. But I mean, can you hear the difference if you put them side by side? Maybe you can hear the difference. But if I put an 810 in one room and a square back in another room, and you ran from one room to the next, you'd be hard pressed to hear much of the difference. And the other thing too was, for portability reasons, they did the tilt back cabs, because the original square backs, you had to transport them on a dolly. They had, much like the old B15s, they had a dolly that the cabinet would sit on top of, and you'd have to push that dolly around. Whereas the new cabinets, you can just tilt them back and wheel them like a dolly wherever you need to go.
Yeah. Guys, I've always been sorry to interrupt. Yeah, they're just like, you had to work out in the gym just to move those guys around, right?
Yeah.
But one of the Ampeg amps that always intrigued me, that I never got to spend a lot of time with, guys, and I always loved the aesthetics of them. And I correct me if I'm wrong, was one of the early amps, and I believe it was called the Portaflex, and the part of it would pop up. It was like a smaller amp. Is that a 115 cab?
Yeah. So the Portaflex, the flip top, the head actually unlatches and then flips up and upside down. So when you go to transport it, the head is sitting inside the cabinet.
Okay.
And then when you go, when you get to your gig, you unlatch it and then you flip the head back up. Okay. And it became popular in the studio. So a lot of guys really never even transported their B15s, because they're not, this is only 30 watts in one of the, I think, in cathode mode. So it's not really loud enough to gig with, per se. I was
going to ask you about the volume.
Yeah. So they became, much like the SVT was the industry standard for stage rigs, the B15 became the industry standard for studios.
Okay.
So that's why it's sitting literally right here next to my desk. And whenever I'm doing a session or tracks for somebody, it's like, Dom's got his back there too. It's,
that's your go-to, right?
Yeah.
And I see one of the comments is here. A great one is the PF50T. Is that different from the Portaflex?
So yeah, the PF50T it's a newer version of the Portaflex, where it's an all tube 50 watt head that attaches to one of the Portaflex cabs. It's not necessarily a B15, because we don't really make B15s anymore. But when somebody wants a B15 style amp, I'll suggest the PF50 and then one of the flip top cabinets, and they can mix and match the heads in the cabinets.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, the last funny story I have to tell you about my amp that I still own and love from the 80s is when I turn it on and the fan starts and I bring that into a studio. The running joke is a bunch of the techs will go, "Sounds like a spaceship taking off here. What's happening?" Because it goes, right. You wait for the base, you wait for the head to come up and fly off like the Starship Enterprise, right? And we always have to find a room to put that in because of the fan. And keep it far away from the microphones. But my God, it's I've done very little maintenance on it. Once in a while, I might have replaced the tubes on it. It is just a complete workhorse. It's been, like the most reliable rig I've ever had. And you're going to have to pry it from my cold, dead fingers if you ever want it.
Well, no, there's something about it. And same thing like this guy right. Where am I? This guy right here is a 69 SVT. And I won't say who it originally came from, but it was gigged around the New York Manhattan area, all the clubs in New York for decades. And when I got it, the first thing I did was I brought it to my tech and I had him go through the whole amp and basically fumigate it.
Yeah.
And even now, like when I turn this thing on, the fans come on, you can literally smell 50 years of New York clubs just emanating from inside that amp. And I don't really run it that often down here because my wife will smell it upstairs. She's like, you got that old amp going? Because I can smell it all the way up here because that smell just emanates through the house.
That's beer and cigarettes and you name it, right?
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
That's an awesome story.
So I got a surprise for you here. So I know we're running out of time. We're almost at the hour mark, but and this is something I didn't put in the questionnaire that I sent over, just seeing what was cool. But we do this with all of our guests.
Yep.
And it was originally my rapid fire, my 10 rapid fire questions, which has grown into 15 questions now.
Okay.
So it's very simple. I give you I ask you a question, give you the options, and then you choose one or the other, and whatever comes to mind first. So it's kind of
so
rapid
if you say
fire.
Hockey, I go Chicago Blackhawks, right?
Well,
that type of thing, right? Yeah.
Speaking of which, you jokingly played for the Chicago Blackhawks. I read the bio on your website, and you caught me on that. I was like, oh,
well,
I get it.
here's the real truth. I've got some friends that work for the team, and I went to a game and they said, come in the afternoon and pick your tickets up. And I went down into the dressing room to get the tickets, and they said, what size skate are you? And I go, I don't know, 10 and a half. And they go, okay, here's your skate, stick, puck, go ahead and skate. And they let me go out on the United States. Well, the team had finished their practice. Okay. They threw out a half dozen pucks and let me blast some pucks around for about half an hour at the United Center. But I've been playing hockey since I was 5 years old, and I still skate 3 times a week. So other than rock and roll, hockey is my other love.
Yeah. That's like a Canadian birthright.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. But you still skate 3 days a week.
I do.
Playing hockey or just skating?
No, playing ice hockey. Yeah.
Playing ice hockey. Good for you, man.
Wow. That's killer.
That is, I work with a couple of musicians around town, and one of them specifically, he does skate 3 days a week in a league here. He's up at 4 o'clock in the morning because that's when you get the cheap rink time, the ice time and whatnot. But man, that's a workout. Even, you're not full body contact all the time, but it's a workout.
The cardio is crazy, but they in this woke society that we live in now, and they talk about mental health. I have to tell you guys that hour that I'm chasing around a stupid little black puck, not thinking about anything, and I come out of there and I'm like rejuvenated. Not only did I get the blood flowing, but the cobwebs of the brain are cleared. So it's kind of like a little bit of mental therapy for me too.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm a pretty positive guy, but that's a good drain to get away from it all, right? But I stole question number 1: hockey, Chicago Blackhawks. There you go.
Okay. All right. Chicago over Toronto Maple Leafs?
Absolutely. Screw the Leafs, man. I'm a Hawks fan.
Okay. All right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So then question number 2 is P-bass or jazz bass?
P-bass.
Okay. Passive or active?
Passive.
Okay. Round wounds or flats?
Gotta go round. Way more growl.
Okay.
Way more growl.
All right. B15 or SVT? I think we know the answer here.
That's my girlfriend. I'm never going to leave her.
Okay. Cable or wireless?
Ooh, that's interesting because I've split it over the years. I think my preference is cable. It might be psychological that I think that I've got a better signal. But if I wouldn't, that's not a hill that I would die on though.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Pick or fingers?
Listen, I got to tell you that I'm half and half through the night now. There's a certain attack and a bite that you cannot get with your fingers. And oftentimes if I need it, like I spoke to you about that Not Dead Yet track from the opening bass, it's just bass and drums with me hitting gang, gang, gang. And it is full on pick as hard as I can on the right hand. I can't get that with my fingers.
Yeah.
But for a smoother tone, definitely. So I'm 50-50 on that one, Dino.
Yeah. I would say Dom and I will agree with you on that. Although I'm a shitty pick player, but I can hammer out eighth notes on a pick.
I've got it up to 16th notes. I'm the Earl of eighth notes, but I can get the 16th going.
Okay, IEMs or floor wedges?
Listen, I'm on ears now, and I miss the old days because I haven't been able to find. I've tried a couple different in-ear scenarios, and I always end up having to pull them out a little bit so that I can hear the bottom. And so that comment's coming from a bassist. If I was just singing, I would say in-ears, but there's something about that bass response that you can't. I haven't been able to get it on my in-ears, and so I can get it from the floor wedges and behind me with the cab.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, excuse me. Pedals or no pedals?
Well, Doug Pinnick pedal, I told you.
Yep.
That one's there. And I've always had a real soft spot for chorus pedals. I've had a variety of chorus pedals on that just for certain songs. I'll hit it for a breakdown or to smooth it out or something like that. So quite a purist in that manner. The Doug Pinnick pedal gives me, I would say, the extra really nasty distortion and clank if I need it, if I can't drive the SVT to get it there. But the chorus pedal, something about that when it starts to spread out that sound and give you that nice warmth. So those are my two go-to pedals.
Okay. We'll have to talk about a liquefier pedal down the road then. Now we're getting into the travel aspect of being a musician. So
yes.
Window or aisle?
You guys are going to love this. Aisle, because I have the bladder about the size of a tennis ball.
That's Dino too.
I don't want to be asking the guy beside me. Sorry, dude, I gotta go.
I'm the same way. I'm the same
way. I'll just get the claustrophobic. That's all.
It gets to the point where the flight attendants just know me by my first name anyway. So it's high bunk or low bunk?
I think high bunk. I want to be able to. I don't want to look out and see people's feet.
Yeah. Okay. Cosmetics, black with white piping or the old silver and blue cosmetics? Speaking of Ampeg.
Ooh. Well, even though I own the black face and it's black and white, there is something so iconic about the silver and that sort of bluish grill cloth. I've customized my cabs over the years, guys, when I've actually put album graphics on them. My brother's a graphic artist, so we'll take the old grill cloth off and put like the cover of the album on it. But I saved my old grill cloth because I thought if I ever want to put it back, I still have the old silvery blue one. So definitely silver is my choice.
Okay.
Low silver.
And that's, speaking of getting back to the rig that Getty used on the R40, that was all silver and blue cosmetics too.
Yeah. It's so iconic.
Yeah. Hot chocolate or coffee?
Why don't I throw you a curveball and tell you like half and half? I've been doing that lately.
Wow.
Half coffee, half hot chocolate. I think they call it the mocha drink here at Tim Hortons in Canada.
Yeah.
Oh, half and half.
You got me going on Tim Hortons now.
Mochaccino.
Yeah.
Mochaccino. There you go, Don.
Favorite place to eat when you're traveling? And it can be a chain, it could be a style, a cuisine, it could be anything.
Okay, I'm going to go. I got two. If I'm allowed to give you two quick choices,
sure.
Go to the NAM
Tim
show.
Hortons.
No, go to the Tim Hortons. No, go to the NAM show every year. I get excited about going to California because my sister lives in Laguna Beach and I can visit her. But the best Mexican food anywhere. You go to Southern California, you go to Laguna or Dana Point or any of those small little cities and find a nice family-run Mexican joint. I eat it every single day when I'm at the NAM show. My sister's like, what's going on with your intestines? How are you doing that? And I go, because I can't get it here in Toronto, right? But I do love deep dish Chicago style pizza too. So whenever I'm in Chicago seeing a Blackhawk game, I make a point of getting deep dish Chicago style pizza.
Okay. All right. Two great answers.
I know, really great, confident, not looking back answers too. I like that.
Yeah.
No
great answers.
I forget the
and I agree with both of them.
Or is it Georgino's or something? There's like two main deep-ish Chicago pizzas. Do you
In
have like
Chicago, yeah.
And
Yeah.
and
I
and
think
see
you're
when
right.
I go to Toronto, I always insist on going to Greektown and
We have a great
getting
Greek town there.
getting
Yeah,
my Greek food. So
absolutely. We've got
yeah,
a we've got a great Little Italy and Greek town in Toronto as well.
yep,
Like lots of great restaurants here.
yep, absolutely. Um, what is your go-to lick for sound check?
Okay. I would say, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, on the name of the song, but it's Led Zeppelin. Bow, down, down, down. How many more times? Is it the bass riff? Down, boom,
I
down,
think it
down,
is.
down,
Yeah.
down, boom, boom.
Yep.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Love to do that one. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Nice.
I forgot about that question.
John Paul Jones. Come on, man.
Exactly. And it it covers the whole spectrum of what you're probably going to be playing in the gig for the most part.
It does, because the first note's a low E,
Yeah.
and then you're up to the high E, and it's like, okay, cool.
And,
I got that covered.
And Paul just confirmed it for us. Yes, it is.
Nice.
So thank you, Paul. And then last but not least, cheesecake or carrot cake?
I'm gonna go with carrot cake, guys. Carrot cake. I got a carrot cake, and I'll get a little Canadian plug-in with a Tim Hortons coffee beside it. With
Tim Hortons. I got to tell you, Tim Hortons. When I would travel Canada with, doing the Long and McQuaid tours doing the clinic tours at Long and McQuaid, and I don't care how many Dunkin' Donuts we had here in New England. When I got out of Canada, like, it's almost like they put something, I swear they put something in their coffee that makes it so addictive.
Yeah.
Like I was having withdrawals coming back from Canada, like not. And we do have a couple of Tim Hortons up in Maine that are close to the border.
Yeah.
But,
I think we call it crack in a cup over here, but anyway,
it's and it's awesome coffee too. But
it is. And
yeah,
a little wedge of carrot cake with that.
Oh man,
I love how you meandered all of those questions. They're all over the map, Dino. That was great, buddy.
Just keeping everybody on their toes,
Yeah.
I think we should make, like, every guest we have, we go through all the answers and we create like a baseball card, and like on the back it's like all the answers.
Well, the thing is, there's no wrong answers. That's the beauty of it. It just kind of, just kind of sums up the whole interview, basically. But,
well, guys, I have to tell you, it's an absolute pleasure talking to both of you, because I think for anybody listening, you have to know how special Ampeg is for me, and it's been there the entire ride of my career. I have not, like I said, if I'm a one-woman man, it's Ampeg, and I have no plans to ever change that. And down the road, if your research and development department wants to talk to me about the diesel version, I'm a phone call away.
Absolutely.
Let's see if we can push the envelope for the diesel version, boys.
Absolutely. And I will give credit. I will say Haji, who is our customer service lead, that takes care of pretty much, if you have an issue with Ampeg, you call the 800 number, you usually get Haji. So Haji was who originally handled the mishap with that back plate on your SCRDI.
Yeah.
And in conversation with Haji and you, Haji was the one that said, man, you got to get Andy on an SVT time. And it dawned on me, it's like, absolutely, we got to get Andy on an SVT time. So this originally came from Haji helping you with your SCRDI and then reaching out. So Haji, I know you're listening. Thank you. I give you credit for this.
Yeah, thank you. And what a strange thing to happen. Like I keep my pedals in this old wooden sort of crate that looks like at one time it might have housed some Pepsi Cola or something like that, and all my pedals are in there. And I picked up the SCDI, and the bottom plate had a bit of curve on it, and I thought, well, that's really weird, and sent a photo of it to you, and went on some forums and found that there was like 2 or 3 other people that it happened to, but it didn't affect the sound of it. It was still completely functional, but I couldn't sit it on my pedal board And I'm going to do a shameless plug here for you. The reason I needed that is Coney Hatch are doing their first ever Unplugged show. And we're going to play at November 14th here in Toronto. And because I'm using Ovation acoustic bass, I want to plug it into the Ampeg pedal and use that because we're having no backline. So I had a selfish reason for getting that pedal because I'm going to use it in an upcoming Coney Hatch gig, and I don't want anybody to say I saw Curran without a piece of Ampeg gear at one of his shows.
No. Happy to help out on that.
Once they get around too much Tim Hortons, they start becoming self-aware and they want to walk away.
Right?
Yeah. We, like I was saying, it's only happened on a few pedals that we've seen. So, and usually we take care of the customer when that happens. But what he's talking about, Dom, on the SCR DI pedals, the infamous warping. But I'm glad we got it straightened out, and you've got it on your pedal board, ready to go for the Coney Hatch gig.
I'm ready to rock, boys. Yeah. And anytime you want to talk hockey, coffee, bases, food, I'm here for you.
Or baseball.
Baseball. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
But thank you for your generosity, guys. And thank you for always being there for me. And for any of you that are listening or will listen, do yourself a favor and get your bass plugged into an SVT. You will thank all three of us for that experience.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Andy. And thank you for your time.
I appreciate it, boys.
And thanks everybody for watching. I do this at the end of every episode. I don't know who we have coming up next. I think it's Adam. Hang on. I will not be able to find it because I am computer illiterate here. Actually, November 11th, we have Adam Cunningham from Cole Swindell's group is joining us. So that's 2 Tuesdays from now. And then whatever Dom and I decide to throw at you in the next couple of weeks too. But Andy, again, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks everybody for watching. And we'll see you all in a couple of weeks.
Been my pleasure, boys. Thank you for the time today. Dom.
Absolutely.
Dino, see you, brothers.